He knocked me over. I landed on the dog bowl.
This One's Wife, Princess Slave Trader. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Now, we know that this one's wife loves her titles. Although in the past she's claimed not to be interested in them, lie, she loves having the title of Duchess of Sussex because it enables her to triangulate people with that for the purposes of subconsciously seeking the prime aims. I've explained in detail previously why that is, so I'm not going to repeat all of that. She went to Nigeria and she managed to pick up another title. While in Lagos, she was christened with a hand-woven Yoruba Ada Mazi drape and royal beads, and she was bestowed the honour of being named Adetokunbo, which is said to mean the crown or royalty from across the seas. Now, this, of course, delighted this one's wife because she regards herself as 43% Nigerian, and she commented, "I think being African-American, part of it is not knowing so much about your lineage, your background, where you come from specifically. And it was exciting for both of us to discover more and understand what that really means. Never in a million years will I understand it as much as I do now," she said, issuing more word salad that didn't make any sense. She thus became dubbed Princess of Arochukwu Ancient Kingdom. And she said that while in her newfound home country, she'd been met with adulation. Thus, this one's wife is thrilled because she gains another title. It makes her feel special. The giving of the title is fuel. The use of that title enables her to assert control over people, draw fuel by people showing deference and respect in relation to it, and the fact that she's dubbed as Princess of Arochukwu Ancient Kingdom is something that she will utilize, that she will character trait acquire from that ancient kingdom for the purposes of subconsciously again pursuing the prime aims. Thus, she's cock-a-hoop. "Ha! Stuff you, Catherine, the nemesis. I've got another title. You haven't got a title from Nigeria. I have. The Nigerian people love me. They love me so much that they've made me Princess of Arochukwu Ancient Kingdom. How you like me now, biatch?" And thus she'll be full of herself at the provision of this title. But once again, this demonstrates the collateral consequences that are never far away when it comes to this one's wife. The repercussions that arise from her rush to pursue the prime aims in that faltering way of the middle mid-ranger. A little bit of history, and this has been pointed out by somebody on X who goes by the name of Prince and Princess of Wales, that drew attention to the fact that the title that she has got is linked to what was known as the ARO. Where do we know those initials from? The ARO Confederacy. So a little bit of history. The ARO Confederacy, which existed between 1640 and 1902, was a political union orchestrated by the Aro people, an Igbo subgroup centered in Arochukwu, in present-day southeastern Nigeria. Okay. So the Confederacy grew in the area that this one's wife was deemed to be a princess of. Gotcha. Now, the ARO Confederacy gained significant economic power through trade relations with the Oguta Ameshi, Onitsha, and Kalabari monarchies. Their economy, wait for it, was primarily based on sale of slaves. During the transatlantic slave trade, the Aro, or Aro, were the primary provider of slaves to the wealthy riverine Igbo merchants of Ogata, Ameshi, Onitsha, and Kalabari. The prominent international slave markets in Igbo land were the Oguta Lake slave market, Onitsha, Abonama, and Boni. These markets were centres of international trade, diplomacy, and major gateways through which Western civilization entered Igbo land. Well, well, well. So this one's wife has been made a princess of Arachukwu, which is where the Aro Confederacy grew up, and that confederacy gained its economic power on slave trade. Thus, this one's wife has been created a princess of an area that was linked to the slave trade. She's Princess Slave Trade. Not a particularly good look for someone who claims to be a bananatarian and identifies as a person of colour. And one can't help but wonder whether she knew a little while ago that she was going to be conferred with this honour, and that part of the thought process of going for American Riviera Orchard, because after all, the name doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. American Riviera, sort of. Orchard? Clumsy. Has she gone for ARO because she was made aware of the Aro Confederacy? That she knew that she was going to be this princess of Orachukwu, and therefore thought, I know, brilliant marketing idea. We'll call it American Riviera Orchard because that's the area in which it's based. But let's tack on Orchard because then that's ARO, and I'm going to be a princess of Orachukwu, which is related to the Aro Confederacy, the Aro Confederacy. Now, it wouldn't be a surprise if this one's wife, knowing that she was getting that honour, looked to do that. Or it might just be simple coincidence that the acronym for her business, her lifestyle brand, fits rather neatly with the name of the confederacy that was centred in the area that she's now been made a princess of. But the link's very clear. She's a princess of that area which housed that confederacy which grew to prominence during the years that I mentioned earlier as a consequence of the selling of slaves. Thus, this one's wife, through accepting this honour, this title, has linked herself to an area and a confederacy that dealt in slaves. Not very clever, but unsurprising when it comes to this one's wife, because in her excitement, if you will, in the desperation to receive a title, to make herself look good in the eyes of Nigeria and the world, to perhaps turn around and flip the bird to Catherine to say, look, I've got an extra title, aren't I important? See how the Nigerians love me. In her clamour and rush to grab this title for the purpose of triangulating people with it, she hasn't thought ahead as to, hang on a second, this title, the area, what does it mean? What's the association? You see, if she'd remained within the royal family as a working member, they have a staff that looks at things like this ahead, that they consider potential titles, honours that are given for the purposes of ensuring that boo-boos like this don't happen, that they look at the history and the affiliations. This one's wife, she wouldn't do so. Why? One, she's lazy. Two, all she will be bothered about is getting the title. She won't think about the connections that come with it. She'll just be interested in what it can do for her. That's her all over, with no moral compass to guide her, no restraining emotional empathy to cause her to think, right, let me know a bit about this area. Should I be linking myself to it? Is this appropriate? She doesn't. And so laughingly, she accepts a title for a region where there was a confederacy which dealt in slaves. And in a delicious twist of irony, who was it that did down the confederacy? Well, it was none other than Great Britain. During the 1890s, the Royal Niger Company of Britain bore friction with the Aroos because of their economic dominance. The Aro resisted British penetration into the hinterland because their economic and religious influence was being threatened. The Aro and their allies launched offensives against British allies in Igboland and Ebiboland. After failed negotiations, the British attempted to conquer the Aro Confederacy in 1899. By 1901, the tensions were especially intensified when British prepared for the Aro expedition. The invasion of Abugo was the last major Aro offensive before the start of the Anglo-Aro War. In November 1901, the British launched the Aro expedition, and after strong Aro resistance, Arachukwu was captured on December 28, 1901. By early 1902, the war was over and the Aro Confederacy collapsed. Thus, who got rid of the Confederacy, whose economic prevalence and dominance was linked to slaves? It was Great Britain. A delicious twist in relation to the individual who once again, as a consequence of her narcissism, goes racing in there to accept a title without realizing that it now links her to the slave trade. So much for being a bananatarian. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.